We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego Unpacked. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. I'm here, yay. We are all gathered here to talk about finances. The well has run dry with the Saudi oil money. Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson will really be affected with this news. In this video, I'm going to break it down. Eddie Hearn talks about the Saudi purses, what will be happening moving forward. Rolly jumped in the mix. I got a great show for y'all. Let's get unpacked. Wouldn't be prudent. Now, Eddie Hearn has stated the Saudis, as far as it pertains to boxing, the spending will now tighten. And he is warning there will be an imminent shift. Brand new article. Let's get through it, and then I'll be back to give my thoughts.
Hearn says events must now make business sense as Saudi-backed model moves away from heavy losses. Eddie Hearn says Saudi Arabia's spending in boxing is tightening, with events now expected to make financial sense. He warned that the model behind recent major cards is shifting away from heavy losses.
It gotta make sense. Oh, I love my job. They are shifting away from heavy losses.
Hearn said the early run of major cards was driven by passion and scale, with little concern for how much money was being lost on each show. He credited Turki Al-Sheikh for elevating the sport, but made it clear that the approach is no longer the same. Events, in his view, now need to stand up as businesses rather than loss-leading spectacles.
Who said the word loss leader?
There needs to be a business case for these events, Hearn said to Cigar Talk. You can't just do a show and lose $20 million and go on to the next one. How long is that going to last for? It's not sustainable. Hearn said the early run of major cards was driven by scale and ambition, with little concern for how much money was being lost on each show. He credited Turki Al-Sheikh for elevating the sport, but made it clear that the approach, there needs to be a business case for these events. Hearn's Saudi-backed cards have underpinned many of boxing's biggest nights over the past year, including events tied to Zuffa Boxing and high-profile fights such as Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson and Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios cards. Hearn did not reference specific shows, but his comments point to a broader model where those kinds of cards were funded at a level that may not be sustainable long-term. That change, he suggested, has already started to show.
The change has already started to show.
He described the operation as more streamlined, with spending no longer as aggressive as it was during the initial surge of Saudi-backed cards. The implication is fewer excess costs and more selectivity around which fights get funded. Hearn still acknowledged the impact Saudi investment has had on boxing, calling its influence undeniable. At the same time, his comments point to a cooling period where financial discipline replaces open-ended backing. If that holds, the effect will be felt across the sport. Fighters who benefited from inflated purses may find negotiations tighter, while promoters will have to build events that justify their cost.
Did y'all hear that? I need y'all to pay attention so y'all can bow down and give me my credit. Fighters who benefited from inflated purses may now find negotiations tighter. Promoters will have to build events that justify their cost.
The environment that allowed multiple elite fights to be stacked on one card could become harder to maintain under a model that prioritizes return rather than scale alone. Hearn's view is that Saudi Arabia remains central to boxing's biggest nights, but the terms are changing. The era of unlimited spending appears to be giving way to one where every event has to make sense on paper.
Oh, the humanity. Whoo. Come in, smash the like button, and get on your knees and pray. Get on your knees and bow down to the sensei, Mr. Miyagi. I made this possible. The king of boxing talk. The best in the business, and it's not even close. Now, why am I saying that? The fans want to know. They like, oh, Ego, what do you mean? You mean to tell me you don't know what Chinese spare ribs are? Well, let me show you, man. What movie is that from? Chinese spare rib. You don't know what Chinese spare ribs are? Name that movie, comment section, go. So, let me show you, man. Boom. About a week ago, I'm on my Bobby Schmurda. About a week ago, I made this video. The video's still up. I gave you almost 1 hour, 51 minutes of pure heat. Wait, this might be a big problem for Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. Put Devin and Shakur in the thumbnail. Put a picture of Saudi Arabia circled with an arrow, money gone, as the thumbnail. A shift in Saudi-backed boxing landscape is starting to impact, and this is what my description starts as, so on and so forth, right? Your boy Ego has been telling you this moment was coming. Now, this is just one video that I did 6 days ago, but I've been telling you far longer than that this moment was coming. Now, all of a sudden, you got a British Caucasian promoter, Eddie Hearn, saying that Saudi boxing spending is slowing down. Now, do you believe it? Because surely some of y'all didn't believe it when the boy Ego made the videos and kept telling y'all, right? And at this point, y'all just got to bow down and admit I'm really the best doing it. I am elite, the best in the business, and it's not even close. Bet on me. Bet on my channel. We're not leading you astray. Why is this important? Well, it's really just a continuation of what I've been saying. And I think the reason why the channel has to be given credit is because I put my neck on the line. I'm a soldier. These shoulders hold up so much I won't budge. I never fall or fold up. I'm a soldier, right? I'm such a soldier that I'm always on the front line, and I'm giving you my opinion in these reports, in these unpacks, in these videos, even when the warning signs, the red flags are not as flagrant, right? So a lot of people, have you ever heard someone use the expression, if it was a snake, it would have bit me, right? They don't see it until it's right up on them. But your boy Ego has been telling you that this moment was coming with the Saudis, right? I got videos from years ago while everybody else was praising Turkey and saying he took over the game, he eliminated PBC, he's putting on crazy events, yada, 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 and throwing caution to the wind, saying that he took over the game and blah, blah, blah. And not just PBC. They were saying that Bob Arum and every other promoter should be shaking in their boots, and Turkey was going to be the single ruler of the game of boxing. Watch, right? But now we're finding that is not actually true, right? As the Saudis have decided to reduce spending, right? And you have to understand what's going on in the world, right? They're in a war-torn region right now with no immediate signs of resolution or when this will end. You look at Russia and Ukraine. How long has that been going on? that conflicts like these don't just typically vanish overnight, right? If you're sending troops, you got to start pulling your troops back, right? You have to have a ceasefire. You have to get a peace treaty. There has to be negotiate. A lot has to go into it, right? Understandings must be made, right? So that is one major obstacle with the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on in the world in general. You think the Saudis, it don't matter how much money you have, everybody's business is being affected, especially in a economy that is largely driven by oil and oil sales, right? And now imports and exporting things become more problematic. We're in America virtually in a recession, right? Gas prices, grocery prices are high, people's rents going up, software companies, Netflix raising their subscription prices. People just can't afford stuff anymore. So with that being said, you do these cards in boxing where it's like 40 different fighters, you know, you're just outputting money, and there's no way you could recoup the amount of money. Like Crawford Madrimov, it wasn't a big card. I told you, lost money. Y'all got mad. The Bud Buddies got mad. Oh man, it lost money. You can't pay Eminem. Eminem don't even come out the house unless it's about some bread. And a lot of it, you had Eminem performing. You put Andy Ruiz and Jarrell Miller and David Morrell and El Rayo and Pitbull Cruz, Crawford, Madrima all on one card in LA, and then had to give away tickets. I know people in LA, right? They were also lying to people and saying it was an Eminem concert, right? So many people went like, ooh, free tickets to an Eminem show, because they were giving away tickets to fill it out. And they didn't even know that it was a boxing event. I told you, stuff like gimmicks, stuff like that does not work in the sport of boxing. Tricking people into thinking they're going to an Eminem concert only, and then like, oh, there's boxing, I guess I'll stick around. That's not how you grow fans. That's why all of these little gimmick stuff from the Saudis and wasteful like money expenditures, that's why they're doing this now, right? Remember the UFC card at the Sphere? Super forgettable. Sean O'Malley, Merab, very forgettable. I don't even really remember the other fights that were on there, right? So you spent all this money, and they're like, we did a $21 million gate. Yeah, but you spent $40 million on production costs, so you didn't really win there. You know what I mean? Same thing with Crawford Canelo. The amount you paid Canelo, your gate doesn't suffice. Your gate doesn't cover it. And now the Saudis, like I told you, it don't matter how much money you have. Nobody wants to be wealthy and rich and continue to flush money down the toilet. At some point, they're going to need some ROI. They're going to need to see some dollars coming back in. And I try to warn you all of this moment that this was not going to be kind of get in and get it while the getting's good, because this was not always going to be a thing in the world of boxing. But a lot of y'all, low-hanging fruit. A lot of fans, they don't do this like me every single day. They're not understanding what was said and reading and knowing what's going on in the world, putting it all together like I do in these Unpacked videos, right? I seen this coming a mile away. And now it looks like the Saudis have kind of settled with TKO. That looks like their TKO, and Dana White looks like Zuffa Boxing is what they're going to put a lot of energy into pushing forward, right? So they used all of these fighters, all of these other promoters, Eddie Hearn, De La Hoya, and Frank Warren, kind of like lily pads. And now Dana White gets to reap the benefits. They're plucking old Eddie Hearn fighters, or people from Eddie Hearn's stable, like Conor Benn, giving him a crazy bag so he leaves Eddie Hearn. There's a report out right now that Anthony Joshua got offered a 2-fight deal by Turki Al-Sheikh, right? So on and so forth. Richardson Hitchens, Edgar Berlanga. And all in all of these big, high-profile, like, purses, it is coming to a halt because they've been losing so much money. Their nation is at war pretty much, right? So they were talking about bringing Canelo to Saudi Arabia in September. Are they still going to do that? Because they paid Tom Brady all this money for flag football, and then they had to relocate it to Los Angeles, as well as Grand Prix and F1. It was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia. So is it even safe with drone attacks for Canelo to go to Saudi Arabia right now? You know what I mean? And Canelo is a big name, so I'm not worried about him. He got skin in the game. He's been out for years. There's some level of like return on investment or attention when he fights. But these other fighters like Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, I think they're in for a brutal reality check, which leads me to this section of the video, right? You got these guys that want to beat Gervonta Davis so bad, in my opinion. And they started just tasting a little bit more than what they previously had, and then almost became enamored with it and full of themselves if you listen to how they talk. Shakur Stevenson talking about, I'll fight Devin at a catch weight. We don't need to fight for belts. Bro, who do you think you are, bro? You're a good little fighter, but you don't move the needle. You're not knocking people out like Tank and then hitting a backflip off the turnbuckle, which is like must-see TV. You're talking about, we don't need to fight for belts. We can sell out. Sell out where? Because if you say Newark, people were leaving your last fight in Newark. If I'm not mistaken, that's the last time you fought in Newark, because you've been fighting in Saudi and New York and stuff like that. So last time Top Rank had you there, your last fight with Top Rank, people were evacuating like there was a bomb threat, like there was a fire. They were leaving. Where are you and Devin Haney supposed to be selling out? And then, again, you got these fighters with this delusions of grandeur, if you will, and they want them crazy purses. And I really think those days are pretty numbered. And the only way out of it is if you're a proven like moneymaker, like Canelo, or you have a big enough fight where they really feel it's a marquee and premium event that they could do something with. Like, I think, I don't speak for the Saudis, but I think they're looking at Anthony Joshua and like Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, right? They fights like that, they feel like those are premium events. So it's all good if they determine it's a premium event, right? But I think the fights like Shakur versus Artem Haratunian and Joe Cordina, even if they make them, they're not probably going to pay you what they would have paid you in the past. Those are the days that are numbered. I think Terrence Crawford, he kind of lucked out being his age, being in the game, Turkey liking him a lot. And he's like the last fighter to really reap the benefits of those inflated purses with very little, without having like a guaranteed blockbuster. Like the Madrimov fight wasn't a guaranteed blockbuster to me, right? Canelo was a bit bigger, even though people think Canelo's on the slide. But guys like Devin Haney and Shakur, now if they fought each other, the Saudis would probably be interested in that, right? Or Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia rematch, things like that. But if these fighters are trying to get like Devin and Brian Norman and Jose Ramirez, right? Maybe you could get those fights off. I'm not saying that. But you're probably going to have to come down on your asking price, because from the looks of it and what Eddie Hearn saying, what I've been telling y'all, they're not giving that up. They're not just, if it's a big fight that they want to make or that they could put on Zuffa or something, they'll probably rock with it. But they not rocking with it just because you want a lot of money. Now, Rolly Romero just did an interview with ES News. Shout out to Ellie Seckback. And he said, Bill told me himself, this is what Ellie said, Bill told me himself, Bill Haney, May 30th, you guys were fighting. They're just trying to use it for clout too. But you signed the contract, right? Rolly says, I'm the one who sent it. We, PBC, sent the whole deal and everything. But you want to go play like your promoter and all that stuff. But then you're like, oh, we still need you. We want you to cover everything. We'll cover your end. We gave you 50%. You could have sold it off to DAZN, but DAZN didn't want to deal with them. This is what Rolly's saying. But it would be a unification. It's a big fight. He's a champion. Yeah, I'm a champion. It would have been a big fight. But, you know, it's called betting on yourself, but you don't want to bet on yourself. I bet on myself. End quote. So I transcribed it for you, but this is Rolly talking to Ellie, right? He's saying that Devin didn't want to bet on himself. And I try to tell you, all the Haneyacks, they looking crazy because you have a fresh negotiation you were in with Rolly, which is probably at welterweight the second best realistic fight, because Shakur already said he not going to 47, right? And if he does, you have to be on a rehydration clause. But Devin Haney got an interview where he said he's not ever doing a rehydration clause. So, obstacle, right? And Devin already said he's not going back to 140. Shakur did offer the fight at 144, but I don't think Devin can comfortably keep going back down. I think 147 or above is where it's kind of at for him right now, right? So, with that being said, the best fight, if it's not Shakur, is Ryan Garcia rematch for Devin. But then you're trying to stipulate Ryan to death and run the show with the VADA stuff, and it's not getting anywhere. So if it's not Shakur, if it's not going to be Ryan for, let's say, you're at odds with negotiations, the next best fight for Devin at welterweight is who? Rolly Romero. But you didn't want to bet on yourself. And I think Devin and Bill Haney, they're like trying to hold out hope, thinking the Saudis are going to save them and give them these giant purses. Like Crawford got a mega purse to fight Canelo. I truly think that's what they're waiting for, right? So they're like outright turning down fights like the Rolly fight, which could have been a good fight, right? What's the point of Devin Haney Promotions if it don't do anything? It don't cover no money. It don't risk anything. What are they there for? What does DHP do other than have a logo, right? Rolly was willing to bet on himself. But the Haneyacks, they don't want to admit this. But again, we're going to see. I can't wait. I can't wait to see Devin's next fight. Where's it at? Hurry up and announce it. Because you have very limited options. And then, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, if you want the bigger bucks, you're going to have to fight a rightful name. I don't think the Saudis are paying you for them Ramirez catchweight fights anymore, right? And you're seeing it with how come the Saudis didn't put no money in to make Virgil Ortiz in boots? They could have stepped in and said, here's $8 million that Virgil Ortiz wants. Here's $8 million that Jaron Ennis probably wants. Boom. Made the fight. But instead they didn't, which led to conflict between Virgil Ortiz and Oscar De La Hoya, and now they're suing each other. So instead of intervening and saving the fight for boxing and preventing the fighter from beefing with his own promoter and going through a lawsuit, the Saudis did nothing about it and didn't step up in terms of they weren't interested in making it for whatever reason. You see how this is going? And then Boots Xander Zayas is a really good fight, but then the Saudis aren't doing that. It's Top Rank and Matchroom doing the fight. So in the past, the Saudis put up fights that were way lesser than these fights. So you would think they would want to be involved with some of these big fights, which further lets me know that everything I've been saying, I've been right on the money. I've been right on the money. They are pulling back spending in a major way. And now you better get in where you fit in. And it's getting to a point where the fighters who won a lot for doing very little, them days is over. You're not going to be able to just cherry pick fights and get that crazy bag. And it's funny because Shakur fans, the Haneyacks, they're not holding their own favorite fighter feet to the fire. Like, hey, Devin, why aren't you fighting Rolly? Hey, Shakur, why are you talking all this trash to Ryan Garcia, but you don't really want to fight him where he's a champion? Then you saying you'll fight Devin Haney. You're a champ at 40. He can't make that. He's a champ at 47. You want to fight at 144 where neither one of you guys got a belt. And you think the Saudis are paying for that? And per usual, the Haneyacks, they're trying to protect Devin Haney and act like he has these plentiful options. Where are they at? Because you wanted to fight Lewis Crocker. Bill Haney even went to Eddie Hearn's event in Stockton trying to talk to him about the fight. Eddie Hearn pretty much said, what you want purse-wise, that's not really a feasible fight, and we ain't heard nothing about Lewis Crocker since. So, no Lewis Crocker, no Rolly Ramiro, because the talks broke off because you think you're worth more and the money wasn't right. Cool. So that's already two people. Shakur, that's the third person because you have differences in opinion on the weight, right? So there's been no progression made for a Shakur and Devin fight. Shakur just did an interview with Ariel Helwani, said there's been no talks and negotiations for him and Devin to be fighting. So that's three people for Devin, right? Ryan Garcia, you keep saying take VADA, sign up now, and he's not doing it. So obstacles there, right? Maybe you can turn that around and get it done. I don't know. You called out Xander Zayas. He didn't even really respond. Now he's fighting Boots Ennis. And he said he would have beat you up because you're too little, right? So no Xander Zayas. No Jaron Ennis. You already beat Brian Norman. The division is trash, bro. So then you got Haneyacks. They're like, oh, Devin can fight Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao. And who said that? I ain't heard nothing about Floyd and Devin. I don't even know if Floyd would fight Devin. That's like somebody his dad used to train and stuff. So I never heard of nothing like that. Plus Floyd getting sued by a million different people. Is that even a big fight? You know what I mean? And don't he got a contract to fight Pacquiao? So it's like, what are people talking about? Again, a lot of low quality content available in boxing. People, it's like the National Enquirer. People just guessing and throwing ish on the wall, hoping something would stick. Talking about Devin can fight Pacquiao. Says who? I thought Pacquiao's name is linked to Ruslan Provodnikov and Floyd Mayweather. How do we get to Devin Haney? Again, wishful thinking. People are hoping and praying for Devin to get a big fight, but if people don't come to their senses purse-wise, it's going to be harder and harder, like I try to tell y'all. So let me know in the comment section who you want to see him fight. No Ryan, no Rolly, no Shakur. I mean, who you going to fight? Tiger Johnson's out there. You guys jumped him, you know, maybe that's an option. But even that's not no big fight. That's a good fight for boxing fans. Like, who's he going to fight? You called out Xander. He's busy. Boots is busy. Teofimo is coming off a loss. Who wants to see Devin and Teo? Ryan said he would fight Teo. That would do better numbers than Devin and Teo at this point. But either way, Teo's coming off a loss, no matter who fights him. So, I don't know. It's looking slim pickings out here. And with the Saudis being more selective, like I warned y'all, because they tired of losing money on these fighters and their demands, I cannot wait. I am so happy because now we get back to the real boxing. Turkey and the Saudis coming in, overpaying these dudes, blowing their head up for weak fights that nobody's going to remember next week, right? And they're still doing it because Tyson Fury, no, ain't nobody wanting to see him fight that neck dude, Game of Thrones looking dude, rolling his neck and all that. That fight sucked. Conor Ben Regis told you he was like terrified. He was terrified to go in the ring and didn't want to make it to the fight, was thinking about pulling out the day of the fight. I mean, these are terrible fights too, but I think ultimately people with money, they don't really care if it's their idea. And Tyson Fury and Conor Ben on the same card, that was probably Turkey's idea. So they're free to spend their money how they want. But you got fighters who are like trying to make fights on social media and then saying, oh, I'll fight you, but I got to get this amount and this amount. Turkey didn't authorize that. The Saudis didn't authorize these purses. So y'all just arguing for no reason. So I'm very excited for what's to come because I think it'll like leverage things out where people can stop being prima donnas and they're going to have to get back to the fighting. You know, the thing that boxing is actually about, fighting, boxing, combat, not just like arguing on social media. So the Saudis, I don't know what else y'all need to see for you to believe it. I've been trying to tell you that infinite money hack, that ain't working no more. They're not just cashing out. They want big fights. They want fights that like move the needle. So I'm happy because I think we'll get actually better fights. You know what I mean? Because keep in mind, the Saudis were spending money on, remember they were doing them movie trailers? And I was like, where are the movie trailers? Where are those cinematic trailers for Bivol Better Biev? Where is Bivol Better Biev Part 3? Instead, they talking about Bivol fighting somebody that we never even seen. Usyk fighting a guy that don't even box, right? I mean, if these aren't signs to you that the Saudis are tightening the budget, I read a lot. The Saudis are focused a lot on AI technology and furthering that. Boxing is like a droplet in the pond. AI can take them further in terms of wealth, you know, by developing new AI technologies. So I think this little social experiment in boxing is about drive. You don't even really hear from Turkey too much. You don't really even hear from him. Like before, remember he was on Twitter every day and posting long videos and like almost like trash talking like a fighter and beefing with Tim Tszyu. You don't really get that. Where's Turkey even really been? You don't even see that. You know what I mean? So I'm excited because I think this is where boxing should have always been. Overpaying fighters for weak fights that nobody asked for, that don't do nobody any favors. If anything, it makes boxing worse because then you get people who are diva'd out and they're like, oh, I don't want to take that. Boy, like Sugar Ray Robinson probably fought for a fraction of what these fighters are getting. You know what I mean? And would fight every 2 weeks and fight his heart out. Guys like Frazier and Tommy Hearns and Ernie Shavers, they weren't making this type of money and they let it all on the line. That's why it's hard to respect the new generation of boxing, you know, and we have to just be satisfied with the history of boxing more so because these new fighters are kind of spoiled, right? Roy Jones put on the show every time. And then you got Jake Paul, who might, probably made more career money than a person like Roy Jones. The game, just because of the time in which you came out and the generation and the money that's available now. And then on top of that, you got fighters who are like real choosy and picking and choosing, like, I'm too good for that. Why should I fight Rolly and put up my own money? I shouldn't have to take a risk, right? Shakur talking about catch weights and rehydration after he tried to clown Tank for it and talking about, we don't need the belts. We're the ticket. We're the fighter. Bro, nobody even really knows you like that. These dudes want to be Tank so bad. I try to tell you, bro. I try to tell you. You guys aren't as, like, you know how I know Gervonta Davis is bigger? Because I watch battle rap and I listen to hip hop. I've heard Lloyd Banks put Errol Spence Jr. in some bars. I've heard several battle rappers reference Gervonta Tank Davis, or even Wilder in his prime, right? Like Tay-Rock said, the DE on Tay Wilder, right? I've never heard a battle rapper put Shakur or Devin in a bar. So it shows you who the culture is, right? Because hip hop always, I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a rapper. I rap, right? Always have. And what I know is hip hop always draws from what's litty, the culture, right? Like if a dope movie like Sinners comes out, somebody put some bars, Michael B. Jordan bars in their music. People are using Tank's name, and because he's exciting to watch. Name a rapper that used Shakur. What are you gonna say? I cried to my girl like Shakur. What do you? I cried on tape like Shakur and Tyrese. Like what is the bar even gonna be? You know what I mean? And then these guys are good fighters, but they also believe that they're moving the needle and their brand is bigger than it really is. And they got a taste of the money and then they fell in love with it. But, to become a legend, you really got to take the fights. So I'm glad. I like the Saudis being more selective. So now it's going to be sink or swim. Get in where you fit in. Survival of the fittest. Build your brand up. Become reputable. Make people want to really watch you. Or, you probably get passed up. Or you're going to have to come down on your prices. Or you're going to have to just fight the toughest fights or whatever. So we'll see what it is. We Unpacked. Live streaming can be tough, which is why I use StreamYard. Click the link in the description for StreamYard, which is an awesome tool that enables you to set up your stream with ease of use. Get great results with live streaming. It's what I use. Stream to social media with ease with StreamYard. Live streaming is here to stay. Engage with your audience using StreamYard. Great way to reach out to your audience and connect. So you need a tool that can do that. If you're new to YouTube and you're struggling to get views, one tool I can provide to you is TubeBuddy. I've been on YouTube over 10 years. I use TubeBuddy daily to crank out videos just like this one that you're watching. Learn how the pros do it with TubeBuddy. YouTube receives a lot of traffic, which also means a lot of creators, a lot of people putting out content. So you need to learn the ropes so you know how to separate yourself, especially if you're new, but even if you're a pro, use TubeBuddy. The link is in the description. Get more views, more subscribers, and a higher click-through rate, so ultimately you can realize all of your online goals. Use my affiliate link in the description and grow your channel fast.